This is Feda Shaheen. She'll say a few words.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Today, we're spreading a message of peace and unity between all the different faiths. Because we've been like played up, and people tried to break us through religions. Religion should unite. It shouldn't break people. What you believe, as long as you're a good person, is a belief. It's good. No religion is bad. It's when you kill that's bad. It's when you use the religion to break people is bad. When you don't follow the moral compass, that is bad. So we are here today united, still remember the genocide in Gaza, and we remember that despite it's Easter today, actually there is no Easter in Palestine. Easter had been called off in Palestine because our Christian brothers and sisters are not allowed to have their Easter. And that's funny because the whole world is celebrating apart from the people who are actually related to Jesus. People who live in the land of Jesus, they are not allowed to celebrate. We are mourning the people who are dying every day, both in West Bank and in Gaza. And that's not fair. That there should be no religion that allows such a thing. We should respect each other. We should be together as human. So today, it's very, very important to be here and to remember what's happening in Gaza and to remember that it's a genocide. It's not a war. It's not a conflict. It's not about the 7th of October. Definitely not. This started in 1948 and even the planning before that with the Balfour Declaration on 1917. That's when it actually started. It's not the 7th of October. Don't let them make you believe that all started on the 7th of October. 7th of October is a result of long-term oppression, long-term genocide. If you look the other week, there was something trending on social media, and that was scary. It was a map showing the ethnically cleansed towns and cities in Palestine, and there are so many of them. So that will tell you the genocide, the existing genocide, is a continuation of that genocide. It is a plan. It had been happening. And they are using the 7th of October as an excuse. Nobody has an excuse to kill women and children and burn people alive and bring another Holocaust. One Holocaust was enough. We had one Holocaust and that was horrible. And this is like a second one. And unfortunately, this is worse. All Holocausts are bad and we cannot compare. But this is really bad because you know what? The previous one, we talked about the newspapers and the radios, but this one is live broadcasted. We could see it every day. We could see people being burned. We could see people being killed. We saw people starved. We saw this, and what did we do? Nothing. Our government did nothing. Keir Starmer is meeting Sagar 2 days ago in London, and you know what they did? They announced it after 2 days of the actual meeting. They were so scared to announce and saying that war criminal is coming to UK. When they announced it, the meeting did actually happen. It had happened 2 days earlier. They were scared of me and you and you and you and you. They were scared that we would go outside Downing Street and tell them this war criminal should be arrested. He shouldn't be hospitalized here in the UK. He shouldn't eat our tax money, food and drinks. He should not be allowed to leave the airport. He should be sitting in a prison because he's a war criminal, and we all know about it. Israel are committing a genocide, and it's very well known. These people belong to prisons. These people do not belong to clean places. They are not, they are creatures. I don't know what to call them, but they're kind of creatures. So, thank you for coming here. Keep coming, keep participating, keep sounding your voice, because what we're doing is galvanizing the whole movement. People in Palestine, they see us. Today, people contacted me from Gaza and they said, thank you for what you're doing. Sandy here told me that her friends in Western Bank today, they thank her for what we're doing. People are seeing us, they're watching us, and they're saying, you know, stay there for us. Don't give up on us. So we will not give up. We will stand for them. Thank you very much. And now I leave it to our lovely Sharen. She was trying to run away. She said she has a headache. I said, me too. We'll leave together after the end of the event. So she cannot run away. She's running this event for us. Thank you very much.
I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, well, our second speaker actually now, is Jonathan Herbert. Jonathan Herbert is a disobedient priest of the Church of England. He is the chaplain for travellers and gypsies in the Diocese of Salisbury. He's also a canon of Salisbury Cathedral. Jonathan has spent 3 months in a little village up in northern West Bank called Jayus, where he worked with a very outstanding Palestinian guy called Abu Azam of great fame. So, Jonathan, please, can you come and talk to people?
Thanks. Welcome to our outdoor church. We'd planned to meet in a Christian church in Bournemouth, but sadly, no church would have us. We said we wanted to gather to pray for peace, to speak for peace, but no, nobody wanted to have us. In a way, this is good, as it reminds us of the people of Gaza, whose churches have been bombed, where over 1,000 mosques have been attacked. People used to go to places of worship for a place for sanctuary, for safety. Now so many mosques in Gaza are places of death and destruction, deliberately being targeted. Here today we come together as a mixed gathering of people of different faiths, of people with faith in humanity, all committed to non-violence, to oppose the forces of occupation and empire. You know what? We're just the kind of people that Jesus of Nazareth hung out with. His association with the marginalized, the downtrodden, his calling out of hypocrisy of the religious powers of his day, and his challenge to the might of the Roman occupiers of his day are what got him crucified. We meet today on what Christians call Holy Saturday, which is a day to remember the numbness, the sense of loss and trauma Jesus' followers felt following his very public state execution the previous day. Holy Saturday is a day for mourning and lamentation, as we remember all who have died as a result of violence in our world. It is a day to commit to another way, to tell the truth about the reality of empire and state-sanctioned violence and the human cost. Today, we shall be particularly remembering all those killed in 80-plus years of occupation, particularly those killed since the 7th of October, and the innocent who continue to die. To mark this, some of us are wearing black, the colour of mourning in many religious and secular traditions. Later on, we shall carry some symbolic corpses in shrouds and process to a burial ground on Bournemouth Beach. Perhaps the most powerful symbol we have today is this beautiful icon which was drawn for today, which is a copy of Michelangelo's Pieta, which shows the Virgin Mary holding the body of her dead son. For me, that picture symbolizes collapse. The collapse of the dead body of Jesus, the terrible collapsing grief of Mary, and the collapse of her world. It reminds us too, when we think about collapse, the collapse of everything in Gaza, the supply of food, electricity, water, infrastructure, and the collapse of 85% of all the buildings. But it symbolizes too, when we use the word collapse, the total collapse of any moral values in the government of the State of Israel, the USA, and our own nation. Any semblance of the rules of war that are supposed to protect civilians, prisoners, journalists, and medics have utterly collapsed. Last month, 15 paramedics were killed seeking to rescue injured people when their ambulances, we see, were deliberately targeted by the Israeli army. Then their bodies buried in a mass grave. News so appalling that even the BBC reported it. Last week on Palm Sunday, the last functioning hospital in Gaza, supported by the Anglican Church, Al-Ahali, thank you, was bombed by the Israeli military. Friends, our final symbolic act today will be to process to the beach and to dig into the sand to produce a grave. You might want to imagine this is a symbolic unearthing of the truth about Gaza, about what's happening in the West Bank, that is too often buried by the media. Then with heavy hearts we will fill the grave to remind ourselves of all who have died and continue to die. But that's not the end, because remember, the violence of empire never lasts. All empires will fall. I remember my Palestinian friends in the West Bank would say, this wall will fall one day. All empires will fall. And I tell you, the only thing that triumphs in the end is the non-violence of love. So, friends, let us stand resolute in Sumud with the people of Palestine and renew our commitment to carry on the long road, the long struggle for justice and peace. Thank you.
And now we have a special guest from the other end of the country, Naomi Wimborne-Idrissi, a very distinguished Jewish activist. She's a signatory of Jews for Justice for Palestinians. She supports JBIG, that's Jews for Boycotting Israeli Goods. And if you've got one of those badges, it says it's kosher to boycott Israeli goods. She started Artists for Palestine, and she is a leading figure in the Jewish Voice for Labour, which set itself up against the Labour Friends of Israel. She is an amazing person. Don't ever go and stay with her, because she'll be on a computer all the time working for Palestine.
Thank you, Sharen. You're far too kind. Let me just stick my glasses on. Well, it's marvellous to see so many people assembling today. I hope more will join us. If we shout loud enough, maybe the people walking by will want to come and join in. A lot of you will know that this week Jewish people around the world have been celebrating the annual Pesach, that's another word for Passover, festival. Families gather for ceremonial meals called Seders, and increasingly we come together to hold freedom or liberation Seders. These remind us that not only were Jews slaves in Egypt who yearned for and achieved their freedom, but that many peoples today remain unfree. Most notably, we talk about the oppression of the Palestinian people by Israel, a state that claims to act in the name of all Jews. We remind everyone that they do not speak or act for us. Israel does not represent the Jewish people. It represents a settler colonial ideology, Zionism, which, as other people have already mentioned, is part of a sort of colonial, imperial movement that the world has seen for a number of centuries, sweeping across the globe, causing death and destruction. It's interesting to look at the Bible story of Exodus. The Israelites escape from bondage in Egypt, and they go and conquer the Promised Land. It's not just a tale of refugees escaping oppression. It's also a story of armed settlers displacing others. Some of you may not have thought of it like that before. From the perspective of the native Canaanites, who were displaced and destroyed in the Israelites' conquest, the Exodus represented not freedom and liberation, it represented violence and oppression. The story is simultaneously an inspiration to oppressed people and fuel for those who practice exclusionary and violent ideologies. Each year at Passover, Jews envision liberation. We say, "Let all who are hungry come and eat." But this year, we know that hunger is rife in Palestine due to the cruel actions of the Israeli state, supported by Western politicians and leaders, including our own. And it's very important that we go away from this action today determined to force that government of ours to act, to stop arming Israel, to stop persecuting people like us who protest for Palestine and for many other just causes. This year, the words of the traditional Passover ceremony feel unbearable. I'm going to share with you a few words from a liberation Seder prepared by independent Jewish voices in Canada. They're members of a group called Global Jews for Palestine, of which my group is also a part. What they say is this: Pesach, Passover, teaches us that the most odious crime is one people's subjugation of another, a crime built on a lie. This year, we are shattered by witnessing Gaza's struggle each day to survive the crime of genocide built on the lie of Jewish supremacy. We plead and we work for the end of this needless hunger, for ceasefire, for justice, which underlies real peace. This year, we gather to hold back despair. Next year, may the criminals be behind walls while Gaza breathes in safety. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. It's really very difficult to talk after Jonathan and Naomi. And as you can see, I haven't done my homework properly. I have no written speech. So what I would really want to talk about while we are celebrating the Easter, as Muslims, we have just celebrated the end of Ramadan, where we, during the month of Ramadan, we did fast on the day, time, and it was an occasion for us to remember and remind ourselves for those people who have less, who are less fortunate than us. And it's an opportunity to think about others, not about ourselves, to be selfish, not to be selfish. And that's really what we learn from it. As when it comes to the Palestinian, yes, we are here as in a faith gathering, and while the politicians, either here in UK or in the United States or in so many other countries, are running scared of the Zionist lobbies, and they are not able to say much about the genocide that's happening in Palestine, what really I feel very, very hard done with is when the leaders of the faith leaders, either being Christians or being Jews or being Muslims, they are on the lines of their governments, or they are just keeping silent. And being silent in the moment of a genocide is a complicity. It's not just that they are silent, they don't say much, but by not saying much when a genocide is happening, And as being faith leaders, there is no other excuse, there is no other description but being complicit in it, because they are just keeping either. And the example is that this event was to happen in a church, and for one reason or another, they refused to have us there. And as you can see, the speeches or what we are talking about or the event itself, we are celebrating the humanity. We are shouting, we are saying that as a human, everyone should be free. Everyone should be free. And unless Palestine and other places are free, no one of us is free. This is a humanity issue. Yes, we think about it, it's Palestine right now. Those people who are the receiving end, most of them are Muslims. But believe me, brothers and sisters, Christians, Jews are as well suffering in Palestine right now. So how many churches have been destroyed? How many Jews within what's called Israel are being prosecuted because they refuse and they stand up against the war? So many of them, and we should not remember them. We should keep them in our prayers. But as you can see here, the future is liberation. There is no other future. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Thank you very much.
Our final speaker on at this venue anyway, at the moment, and his name is Dr. Stephen Sizer. He's also an Anglican priest. I first met him years ago when he took the Church of England on, because the Church of England was invested in Caterpillar, and Caterpillar was busy enabling the occupation by bulldozing Palestinian homes and helping to build illegal settlements on the West Bank. And he took on, at a meeting, the head of the Ethical Investment Advisory Group of the Church of England, who didn't really have a leg to stand on. And Stephen, I would say, wiped the floor with him, but he did it so gently and completely respecting the dignity of this other guy who didn't have a leg to stand on. And that campaign went on for a long time. Finally, the clue is in the word, the Ethical Investment Advisory Group divested from Caterpillar. Yeah. And when we said, thanks guys, they said, oh, it's nothing to do with you. We did it on financial grounds, not ethical grounds. And I think that says it all. From that time, the Board of Deputies, the people who say they speak for Jews in this country, targeted him. He was hounded and he was silenced by the Church of England. And it was not a pleasant scene at all. And he kept his mouth shut all the time he was working, from that time until he left the employ of the Church of England. When he left the employ, he started a foundation for peace and justice. But again, the Board of Deputies came after him, and the Church of England fell into line behind the Board of Deputies and started to give him a hard time again. Although he is now free to speak, he has been thrown out of the church, even more dramatically than we were thrown out of the church up the road. So please welcome Dr. Stephen Sizer.
I've been asked to speak about Palestine's Christian resistance. Dr. Munther Isaac, in his now famous sermon, Christmas 2023, called Christ in the Rubble, made this statement, which has become even quoted in the United Nations. Gaza today has become the moral compass of the world. I'll say that again. Gaza today has become the moral compass of the world. It's sobering to realize that for the first time in history, genocide is being recorded live on social media by the victims. No one today can say they didn't know. I've been asked to talk about the struggles Palestinian Christians face today. I'm sure that, like you, I feel I have no choice but to be here. It's a moral imperative to show solidarity with the people in Gaza and Palestine, because Palestinians in Gaza are experiencing genocide. Palestinians in the occupied territories are living under apartheid. They are both facing ethnic cleansing. The Palestinian Christian community is a double minority. They are a minority in Israel among Israeli Jews, and they're a minority among Muslims in the West Bank and Gaza. They are close to extinction. Frankly, I believe that this is the Zionists' strategy. You may know that 9 out of 10 Zionists in the world are Christians. 9 out of 10 Zionists in the world are Christians. The Zionist movement depends heavily on fundamentalist Christians in the United States especially, but also here in the UK and other European ex-colonial countries. They depend heavily on that support for financial support, military support, and vetoes in the United Nations. The presence, therefore, of an indigenous Palestinian Christian community is an inconvenient truth. Zionists want to portray this as an eternal religious struggle, Christians and Jews against Muslims. It is not true. The presence of the indigenous Christian community undermines that narrative. Ironically, Palestinian Christians represent the Mother Church. They are the Mother Church. They are mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles in the list of those present on the day of Pentecost. Palestinians were among the first to hear the good news of Jesus Christ centuries before that message reached the shores of the United Kingdom. When the Archbishop of Canterbury initially refused to meet Munther Isaac, allegedly to avoid offending the Jewish community, in a Guardian article, Munther said this: "The small Christian community in Gaza has discovered what is hell on earth. Most of them have lost their homes. There is no life left for them. This war will most likely bring an end to the Christian life in Gaza." It is so painful for us to see the Christian church turn a blind eye to what is happening, offering words of concern and compassion, but for so long they have been silent in the face of obvious war crimes. Western churches seem paralyzed. They seem willing to sacrifice the Christian presence in Palestine for the sake of avoiding controversy and not criticizing Israel. How tragic that our brothers and sisters in Palestine feel ignored and abandoned by the church in the West, which historically has depended upon them for the gospel. They demand justice, only justice, because peace without justice is appeasement. Now, what is the role of faith in justice? Our faith, our understanding of God's will for our purposes, determines how we understand justice, how we perceive injustice. As followers of Jesus Christ, by stark contrast to Zionists, our struggle for justice requires the repudiation of violence as a means of resolving injustice. On Good Friday, Jesus expressly repudiated the idea, as a king, that his followers should fight for him. That's why in the Sermon on the Mount he promised his followers blessing when they struggle and suffer against opposition in order to follow him. This is our jihad. Jihad means struggle or holy war in English. In the New Testament, the word is used to describe the struggle we face against evil. In the Christian scriptures, the enemy is never identified with people, but with evil forces at work in our world. Zionism is but one contemporary manifestation of that. And Christian Zionism, in my view, is a heresy. It's a prostitution of our faith. That's why I'm not only deeply ashamed of the church here in the UK for its silent complicity, but I'm angry with our church leaders who refuse to acknowledge, let alone condemn, Israel for imposing apartheid, perpetuating ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza. They will not even use these words in their pompous statements.
Shame on them. Shame on them.
There is an unhealthy and close, long-standing relationship between the leaders of the Church of England and the Board of Deputies of British Jews, who describe themselves unapologetically as a pro-Israeli lobby. I did some intensive study on the 4 statements which the Church of England has published since October 2023, right through to today. And the language used to describe Palestinians and the language used to describe Israel could not be more stark than it is. Israeli casualties resulted from abhorrent terrorist attacks. Palestinian casualties were the consequence of Israel exercising its right of defense. Hamas acted in violation of international law. Israel's actions were only inconsistent with international law. The most frequent term used was self-defense. The Archbishop even referring to his desire for a military victory against Hamas. Over the time that we've been observing the way in which church leaders have spoken about Gaza, they still refuse to use words like ethnic cleansing, war crimes, or genocide. If Gaza is the moral compass of the world, it is evident that the Church of England leadership are relying upon a very different compass, one that steers them to prioritize their relationship with the Israel lobby over the people of Palestine. Finally, I was asked just to say a few words about how we can show solidarity across the religions, and that's why we're here today. I commend the work of Sabeel and Kairos in particular, the work of Campaign, of the Convivencia Alliance, of ICAD. These are some of the organizations that bring Jews, Muslims and Christians together to seek justice for Palestine. I commend them to you. We must work together and not allow our enemies to divide us as people of faith. What can we do? We can do 2 things. We can pray, first and foremost, to the God of justice to bring an end to this evil and to punish war criminals and bring swift justice and lasting peace to Palestinians, free in their own land. But we must also act. If Gaza is the moral compass of our world today, what is that compass telling us our direction should be? If our leaders will not impose sanctions, we can boycott and divest from companies profiting from the genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. Boycotts and divestments are like 2 hands that work together. We can boycott the companies profiting from the occupation, servicing the occupation, and we can divest from them. We can withdraw our income, our savings, our investments. Archbishop Desmond Tutu compared South Africa to Palestine. He said the end of apartheid stands as one of the crowning accomplishments of the last century, but we would not have succeeded without the help of international pressure. If apartheid ended, so can the occupation, but the moral force and the international pressure will have to be just as determined. The current divestment effort, he said, is the first but certainly not the only necessary move in that direction. Palestine's Christians, along with their brothers and sisters within the Muslim community and anti-Zionist Jews, are resisting evil non-violently, sacrificing their possessions, their land, and in many cases, their lives. If Gaza is indeed the moral compass of the world, if Christ is still under the rubble with his faithful people in Palestine, what is he calling you and I to do this Easter to show that we are indeed faithful in following him? God bless you.